Chapter 1. Understanding Time and Why You Feel Behind. Most people believe they are behind in life because they lack time. But the truth is deeper than that. And once you understand it, something powerful happens inside you. Everyone you admire, every successful person you look up to, wakes up with the same 24 hours you do. They don't get extra minutes hidden somewhere. They don't have secret days added to their calendar, and they don't live in a different universe where time moves slower. The difference isn't time itself, it's awareness. Most people move through their days unconsciously, reacting instead of deciding, responding instead of directing, surviving instead of building. When you live like that, time feels like something that happens to you rather than something you shape. You wake up already feeling late, already feeling behind, already feeling like you're chasing something you can't catch. This creates a constant pressure, a silent stress that follows you everywhere, making even free moments feel heavy. And the worst part is, you start blaming yourself without understanding the real cause. You say you're lazy, unfocused, or undisciplined, when in reality, you've never been taught how to see time clearly. Awareness always comes before action. Until you understand why time feels like it's slipping through your fingers, no planner, no routine, no productivity trick will ever save you. This chapter is about opening your eyes, not fixing anything yet. Because once you truly see what's happening, guilt disappears and control slowly returns to you. The illusion of not enough time is one of the most damaging beliefs modern life has created. You feel it the moment you wake up and check your phone, when your mind starts racing through everything you didn't finish yesterday and everything waiting for you today. Your brain tells you there's too much to do and not enough hours to do it. But what it doesn't tell you is how much time quietly disappears without you noticing. These are time leaks. They don't show up as big, obvious losses. They hide inside small habits, unnecessary scrolling, constant checking, half-focused work, and emotional exhaustion caused by overthinking. You don't lose time all at once. You bleed it slowly. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, mental energy wasted switching between tasks, worrying about things that haven't happened yet. And by the end of the day, you feel tired without feeling accomplished. This creates frustration, not because you didn't work, but because you don't know where your effort went. Time leaks are especially dangerous because they feel harmless in the moment. Your mind tells you it's just a short break, just a quick look, just a small delay. But when these moments stack together, they shape your entire life. Awareness means noticing where your time actually goes, not where you think it goes. Once you see this clearly, you stop blaming yourself and start reclaiming what was quietly taken. Another reason time feels so heavy is procrastination, but not the lazy kind people talk about. Real procrastination is psychological. It's not about avoiding work, it's about avoiding discomfort. When a task feels unclear, overwhelming, emotionally charged, or connected to fear of failure, your brain looks for relief. And relief usually comes in the form of distraction. This is where modern technology becomes dangerous, not because it's evil, but because it's convenient. Your phone offers instant escape from discomfort. A notification, a video, a message, a scroll, all give your brain a quick reward without effort. You don't consciously decide to waste time. Your brain is simply trying to feel better. Over time, this trains you to react instead of choose. You begin your day responding to what's loud instead of what's important. Emails, messages, alerts, other people's priorities take control, and before you realize it, the day is gone. This constant reaction mode kills long-term progress because growth requires quiet focus, patience, and intentional effort. When everything feels urgent, nothing truly important gets space. Awareness means recognizing that procrastination is not a character flaw, it's a signal. A signal that something feels unclear, heavy, or emotionally unsafe. Once you understand this, you stop fighting yourself and start guiding yourself instead. The final shift in this chapter is understanding the difference between survival mode and intentional living. Survival mode is when your entire day is spent reacting, rushing, and trying to keep up. You answer messages as they come, deal with problems as they explode, and collapse at night, hoping tomorrow will be easier. Intentional living is different. It doesn't mean your life suddenly becomes calm or perfect. It means you decide before the day begins what deserves your energy. It means you understand the difference between urgent and important. Urgent things demand attention now, but important things shape your future. Survival mode keeps you busy with urgency. Intentional living protects time for importance. This shift alone changes how time feels. You stop feeling chased by the clock and start feeling aligned with it. And this chapter is not asking you to change anything yet. It's asking you to see clearly. To understand that feeling behind doesn't mean you're failing. It means you've been living without awareness in a world designed to steal it. Once you see this, the pressure softens, guilt fades, and a new question appears. If I'm not broken and time isn't my enemy, then what can I do differently? That question is where real-time management begins. Chapter 2. Mastering your mind before managing your schedule. Before you try to control your calendar, your planner, or your daily routine, you must understand one hard truth that most people never realize. Time management is not a scheduling problem. It is a thinking problem. You can download the best apps, buy the most detailed planners, and watch endless productivity videos. But if your mind is scattered, overwhelmed, and constantly distracted, none of those tools will work for long. Your mind is the control center of your time. Every action you take begins as a thought, every delay starts as a decision, and every wasted hour is usually the result of mental clutter, not lack of opportunity. Most people underestimate how much energy is lost to overthinking, worrying, and mental noise. You may not be physically busy, but your mind is running all day, jumping from one thought to another, replaying conversations, stressing about the future, or regretting the past. This mental chaos creates the feeling of being behind, even when nothing urgent is happening. When your mind is overloaded, even simple tasks feel heavy, and you avoid them, not because they are hard, but because your brain is tired. Awareness here is powerful. You are not failing at time management because you lack discipline. You are struggling because your mind has never been trained to rest, focus, and decide clearly. Once you understand this, you stop fighting time and start calming the source of the problem, your thoughts. One of the biggest enemies of effective time use is decision fatigue. From the moment you wake up, your brain starts making choices. What to check first, what to reply to, what to work on, what to delay, what to avoid. Each decision drains a small amount of mental energy, and by the time you reach the middle of the day, your ability to choose wisely is weakened. This is why you may start the morning with good intentions, but end the day scrolling, procrastinating, or giving in to easy distractions. It's not because you don't care, it's because your mind is exhausted from too many unplanned decisions. Add perfectionism to this, and the problem grows. Perfectionism disguises itself as high standards, but in reality, it creates fear of starting. When something needs to be done perfectly, your brain delays it to avoid discomfort. You tell yourself you'll do it later when you have more time, more energy, or a better mood. Later rarely comes. Over time, these delays pile up and create stress, which further weakens your focus. Managing time at this level means changing how you think about action. You stop waiting to feel ready and start acting when things are clear enough. You accept progress over perfection and direction over certainty. When your mind learns that action reduces stress instead of creating it, your relationship with time changes completely. The final mental shift in this chapter is learning to let go of the illusion of later. Later feels safe because it postpones discomfort, but later is the most expensive word you can use with time. Every time you delay something important, you're not just moving it forward, you're carrying it with you mentally. Unfinished tasks don't disappear. They sit quietly in the back of your mind, draining focus and energy. This is why people feel tired even on days when they haven't done much. Their minds are full of open loops. Mastering your mind means closing these loops intentionally. It means deciding what matters now, what can wait, and what doesn't matter at all. It means reducing mental clutter so your brain can focus on one thing at a time. When your mind is calm, time stretches. When your mind is chaotic, time collapses. This chapter is not about forcing productivity. It's about creating mental clarity so productivity becomes natural. Once your thinking is clear, managing your schedule becomes easier, lighter, and far less stressful. And only after this foundation is built does planning truly begin. In the next chapter, we'll move from mindset into action by learning how to set priorities that actually deserve your time, not just demand your attention. Chapter 3. Setting clear priorities that actually matter. Most people don't struggle with time because they lack hours in the day. They struggle because they lack clarity about what actually matters. When you wake up each morning without a clear sense of priority, your day immediately becomes reactive. You respond to messages, notifications, requests, and small problems as they appear. And by the end of the day, you feel exhausted, but strangely unfulfilled. This happens because busyness is not the same as progress. Priority is the invisible force that gives direction to effort. Without it, energy spreads thin and results disappear. Many people confuse importance with urgency. But urgency is loud and demanding, while importance is quiet and patient. The things that shape your future rarely shout for attention. They wait. And when they are ignored long enough, they turn into regret. Setting priorities is not about doing more things. It's about deciding which few things deserve your best attention. Once you understand this, time management stops being about squeezing tasks into a day and starts being about protecting what truly matters from everything that doesn't. One reason people avoid setting clear priorities is because it forces uncomfortable decisions. When you prioritize one thing, you automatically deprioritize something else. That can feel like loss. It can feel like you're missing out or letting someone down. But avoiding priorities doesn't remove that cost. It just hides it. The cost shows up later as burnout, resentment, and a feeling that life is moving without you. Clear priorities require honesty. You have to ask yourself what actually moves your life forward, not what looks productive on the surface. Many tasks feel necessary simply because they are familiar. You've always done them, so you keep doing them without questioning whether they still deserve space in your life. Priority forces you to question habits, routines, and commitments that no longer align with who you want to become. This is not about being extreme or rigid. It's about being intentional. When you know what matters, decisions become lighter. You stop carrying the weight of everything and start carrying only what belongs to you. Another major shift in this chapter is understanding the difference between urgent and important in real life, not just in theory. Urgent tasks create pressure because they demand immediate action. Emails, messages, deadlines, and other people's expectations often feel unavoidable. Important tasks, on the other hand, rarely come with deadlines. Improving your health, building skills, strengthening relationships, and working toward long-term goals often feel flexible, so they get postponed. The danger is that what you postpone repeatedly slowly disappears from your life. Prioritizing means intentionally scheduling important things before urgency fills your day. It means deciding in advance what you will protect time for even when life feels busy. This is where most people fail, not because they don't care, but because they wait for a perfect moment that never comes. There will always be something urgent. There will always be noise. Priority is the act of choosing importance anyway. When you do this consistently, your life begins to feel directed instead of chaotic, and progress becomes visible instead of theoretical. Many people also struggle with priorities because they measure their value by how busy they are. Being busy feels productive, and productivity feels like worth. But this mindset is dangerous. When busyness becomes your identity, slowing down to focus feels uncomfortable. You may feel guilty for not responding immediately or for saying no to something that doesn't align with your priorities. But guilt fades when clarity grows. When you know why something matters to you, protecting time for it no longer feels selfish. It feels necessary. Priority is not about ignoring responsibility. It's about honoring purpose. Your time is not unlimited, and treating it as if it is leads to exhaustion. Clear priorities allow you to invest your energy where it creates the most impact instead of scattering it across endless demands. Over time, this creates confidence. You trust your choices because they reflect intention, not pressure. Setting priorities also requires letting go of comparison. When you compare your pace, goals, or lifestyle to others, your priorities become distorted. You start chasing what looks impressive instead of what feels meaningful. Someone else's goals may not align with your values, yet you feel pressure to keep up. This leads to overcommitment and constant dissatisfaction. Priority brings you back to your own path. It reminds you that progress is personal. What matters most is not how fast you move, but whether you're moving in the right direction. When your priorities are clear, you stop reacting to external validation and start building internal alignment. Your days begin to match your values, and that creates a quiet sense of fulfillment that busyness can never provide. The purpose of this chapter is not to give you a rigid system, but to shift how you see your time. You don't need to do everything. You need to do what matters. When priorities are clear, time stops feeling like an enemy and starts feeling like a resource. You feel less rushed, even on busy days, because you know why you're doing what you're doing. This clarity removes guilt, reduces stress, and strengthens focus. Priority is not something you decide once and forget. It's something you return to daily. Each morning, you choose again, and each choice shapes the direction of your life. In the next chapter, we'll take these priorities and turn them into a simple daily planning system that supports your energy instead of draining it, so your time finally works with you instead of against you. Chapter 4. Planning your day without overloading yourself. Most people think planning their day means creating a long to-do list and trying to squeeze as much as possible into every hour, but that approach is exactly why planning often feels stressful instead of helpful. When your plan is unrealistic, your day begins with pressure before you even start. You look at the list and immediately feel behind. This creates resistance, avoidance, and frustration. Real planning is not about filling time. It's about protecting energy. A good plan should make your day feel lighter, not heavier. It should give you clarity about what matters, not overwhelm you with endless tasks. Planning works best when it respects your limits instead of ignoring them. You are not a machine, and your energy is not constant throughout the day. Some hours you think clearly and move fast. Other hours you slow down. When your plan ignores this reality, it sets you up to fail. The goal of daily planning is not perfection. It's direction. When you plan with intention, your day stops controlling you and you start guiding it with calm awareness. One of the biggest mistakes people make when planning is overestimating how much they can realistically do in a day. You plan as if nothing will interrupt you, as if your energy will stay high all day, and as if every task will go smoothly. Life rarely works that way. Unexpected messages, emotional moments, fatigue, and delays are part of being human. When your plan doesn't account for this, one small disruption can derail your entire day. That's why effective planning includes space, not just tasks. White space allows you to breathe, adjust, and recover without guilt. It gives your mind permission to slow down without feeling like you're failing. A realistic plan doesn't try to dominate the day, it flows with it. It focuses on a few important tasks instead of many small ones. When you plan less, you often accomplish more because your focus becomes deeper and your effort more intentional. Another powerful shift is learning to plan your day around priorities instead of obligations. Obligations are endless. There will always be emails to answer and small tasks to complete. Priorities are limited. They reflect what actually moves your life forward. When you plan around obligations, your day fills up quickly but leaves little room for progress. When you plan around priorities, your day becomes purposeful, even if it's busy. This means identifying 1 to 3 key tasks that truly matter and protecting time for them before distractions take over. These tasks deserve your best energy, not leftover minutes. Planning this way reduces decision fatigue because you don't have to constantly ask yourself what to do next. You already decided. This clarity creates momentum. Even on days when everything doesn't go as planned, completing what matters most gives you a sense of accomplishment that carries into the next day. Many people also underestimate the power of planning the night before. When you wake up without a plan, your mind immediately enters reaction mode. You start responding to whatever appears first, instead of choosing intentionally. Planning the night before gives your brain a roadmap. It reduces morning stress and saves mental energy. You don't wake up wondering what to do, you wake up knowing. This doesn't mean creating a rigid schedule. It means making a simple decision about what matters tomorrow. When your mind already knows the direction, it rests better, and your mornings become calmer. This small habit alone can transform how your days feel. Instead of starting rushed and scattered, you begin grounded and focused. Planning ahead is not about control, it's about clarity. Another important part of planning without overload is understanding that rest is not wasted time. Many people plan their day as if rest is something they'll earn after everything is done. But everything is never done. When rest is not planned, burnout eventually forces it. Planned rest, on the other hand, supports productivity instead of destroying it. Short breaks, moments of quiet, and intentional pauses help your mind reset and maintain focus. A plan that ignores rest will fail in the long run. When you respect your need to recharge, your work becomes more efficient and your thinking clearer. Planning is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters sustainably. When rest is part of the plan, guilt disappears and energy becomes more stable throughout the day. The purpose of planning is not to control every minute, but to create structure that supports your life. A good plan adapts when needed instead of collapsing. Some days will go off track, and that's okay. Planning teaches you to respond with flexibility instead of frustration. When something doesn't get done, you don't judge yourself, you adjust. This mindset removes the emotional weight from productivity. You stop seeing unfinished tasks as failure and start seeing them as feedback. Planning becomes a tool for awareness instead of pressure. Over time, this builds trust in yourself. You know you can plan, adapt, and continue without quitting. In the next chapter, we'll explore how distractions quietly steal your time and how protecting your focus is the key to making any plan actually work in the real world. Chapter 5. Eliminating distractions and protecting focus. If time is your most valuable resource, then focus is the tool that determines how well you use it. You can have a perfectly planned day and still accomplish very little if your attention is constantly pulled in different directions. Most people don't lose time because they are inactive. They lose time because they are distracted. Distraction doesn't always look dramatic. It doesn't always announce itself loudly. Often it slips in quietly, disguised as a quick check, a harmless scroll, a moment of curiosity. But every time your focus is broken, your mind has to work harder to return to what it was doing. That invisible effort drains energy and shortens attention span. Over time, you stop trusting your ability to concentrate, and deep work begins to feel uncomfortable. This is not a personal failure. It is a predictable response to a world designed to constantly demand your attention. Protecting focus is no longer optional. It is a skill you must learn if you want your time to produce meaningful results instead of constant busyness. One of the biggest myths people still believe is that multitasking makes them more productive. In reality, multitasking fractures your attention and lowers the quality of everything you do. Your brain is not designed to focus on multiple demanding tasks at once. What feels like multitasking is actually rapid task switching, and each switch comes with a cost. You lose clarity, make more mistakes, and take longer to complete tasks than if you had focused on one thing fully. This constant switching trains your mind to crave stimulation instead of depth. Silence begins to feel uncomfortable. Focus feels boring. And boredom becomes something you avoid at all costs. When that happens, meaningful progress becomes difficult because progress requires staying with discomfort long enough to move through it. Eliminating distractions means accepting that focus will feel challenging at first. That discomfort is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign your attention muscle is being rebuilt. Modern distractions are especially dangerous because they are personalized, portable, and always available. Your phone doesn't just interrupt your time, it interrupts your thinking. Notifications pull your attention away before you've even decided whether something matters. Over time, your brain stops choosing focus and starts reacting automatically. You reach for your phone without thinking, not because there's something important, but because your mind has been trained to seek stimulation. This habit slowly weakens your ability to stay present. Protecting focus requires boundaries, not willpower. You cannot rely on discipline alone in an environment designed to distract you. You must intentionally create spaces where your attention is safe. This might mean turning off notifications, placing your phone out of reach, or setting specific times to check messages. These actions are not extreme. They are acts of self-respect. You are choosing depth over noise, clarity over chaos, and intention over impulse. Another important part of protecting focus is learning to separate shallow work from deep work. Shallow work includes tasks that require little concentration, like quick messages, routine emails, and minor administrative work. Deep work requires sustained attention, creative thinking, problem solving, and meaningful effort. Both are part of life, but they should not compete for the same mental space. When deep work is constantly interrupted by shallow tasks, progress slows and frustration grows. This is why protecting blocks of uninterrupted time is so powerful. Even short periods of focused effort can produce significant results when attention is fully present. You don't need hours of perfect focus. You need moments of intentional depth. When you protect these moments consistently, your confidence grows. You begin to trust your ability to concentrate again, and work that once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Rest also plays a critical role in protecting focus. Many people believe rest is the opposite of productivity, but in reality, rest supports focus. When your mind never gets a break, attention becomes fragile. You become easily distracted, not because you lack discipline, but because your brain is tired. Protecting focus means scheduling rest before exhaustion forces it. This includes stepping away from screens, spending time in silence, and allowing your mind to reset without stimulation. True rest is not endless scrolling or constant entertainment. It is intentional disengagement. When you allow your brain to experience quiet, focus returns naturally. Planning rest into your day is not a weakness. It is a strategy. It ensures that when you do focus, your attention is strong and steady instead of scattered. The purpose of this chapter is not to make you eliminate every distraction forever. That's unrealistic. The goal is awareness and intention. You begin to notice what pulls your attention away and decide whether it deserves access to your time. You stop letting distractions choose for you. Protecting focus is about reclaiming ownership of your attention in a world that constantly tries to take it. When you do this, time stretches. Tasks take less effort. Your mind feels calmer, and your work feels more meaningful. In the next chapter, we'll explore how habits and systems can save time automatically, so focus and productivity don't depend on motivation alone, but become part of your daily life. Chapter 6. Building habits that save time. Automatically. Most people believe time management requires constant discipline, motivation, and effort. But the truth is far simpler and far more freeing than that. The most effective use of time comes from habits, not willpower. Habits are decisions you no longer have to make. Once something becomes a habit, it runs quietly in the background of your life, saving you time, energy, and mental effort every single day. This is why two people can have the same schedule and very different results. One spends the day deciding, resisting, and negotiating with themselves, while the other simply follows patterns they've already built. Habits remove friction. They turn intention into action without debate. When your habits are aligned with your priorities, time begins to work for you instead of against you. You stop starting over every day and start building momentum that carries forward naturally. This chapter is about shifting from relying on motivation to designing systems that support you even on tired, distracted, or difficult days. One reason people struggle to build habits is because they aim too big, too fast. They try to change everything at once and rely on excitement to carry them through. But excitement fades, and when it does, the habit collapses. Sustainable habits are small, repeatable, and realistic. They don't demand perfection, they demand consistency. A habit that takes 5 minutes and gets done every day is far more powerful than a habit that takes an hour and happens once a week. Time-saving habits are not about intensity, they are about ease. When a habit feels simple enough to repeat without resistance, it sticks. Over time, these small actions compound into massive change. You don't notice it day to day, but months later, your life feels lighter, more organized, and more intentional. This is the quiet power of habits. They don't shout, they build silently. Another key element of time-saving habits is automation. Automation doesn't mean technology only. It means reducing the number of decisions you make each day. Decision-making is exhausting. When you decide the same things repeatedly, what to wear, when to work, How to start your day. You waste energy that could be used for meaningful tasks. Habits eliminate this drain. When you wake up and follow a familiar routine, your mind stays calm. When you work at the same time each day, focus arrives faster. When you end your day the same way, rest comes easier. These patterns create stability in a chaotic world. You no longer ask yourself what to do next because the answer is already built into your habits. This frees mental space and allows you to think more clearly about what truly matters. Time saved here is not just minutes, it's mental clarity. Habits also protect you from your own moods. Motivation is unreliable. Some days you feel driven, other days you feel tired, distracted, or emotionally low. Habits don't care how you feel. They carry you forward when motivation disappears. This is especially important for time management because emotions often sabotage consistency. When you rely on motivation, progress becomes unpredictable. When you rely on habits, progress becomes stable. You show up not because you feel like it, but because it's who you are becoming. This shift changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That identity builds confidence and reduces stress. You trust yourself more, which makes planning and execution far easier. Habits don't just save time, they save emotional energy. Breaking time-wasting habits is just as important as building productive ones, but this process must be gentle, not aggressive. People often try to eliminate bad habits by force, using guilt and self-criticism. This rarely works long-term. Habits exist for a reason. They provide comfort, relief, or distraction. Instead of fighting them, you replace them. You swap a harmful habit with a less damaging one, then slowly with a better one. This approach respects human behavior instead of resisting it. When you reduce time-wasting habits gradually, your life doesn't feel deprived. It feels refined. You don't lose comfort, you gain control. This makes change sustainable. Over time, you look back and realize you didn't need extreme discipline. You needed patience and consistency. The goal of this chapter is to help you understand that time management is not something you do occasionally. It's something you live daily through habits. When your habits support your priorities, your days become easier to manage. You spend less time deciding and more time doing. You feel less overwhelmed because your life has structure beneath it. Habits create rhythm, and rhythm creates flow. Once this foundation is built, time stops feeling chaotic and starts feeling predictable in a good way. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to balance work, rest, and personal life so your time management remains sustainable and your progress doesn't come at the cost of your well-being. Chapter 7. Balancing work, rest, and personal life. Most people think balance means dividing time equally between work, rest, and personal life. But real balance is not about equal hours. It's about sustainable energy. You can spend 8 hours working and still feel productive. Or you can spend 8 hours working and feel completely drained. And the difference is not time. It's how that time is managed and respected. Many people live in a constant cycle of overworking followed by guilt-driven rest. They push themselves too hard, ignore signals of exhaustion, and then collapse when their energy runs out. This pattern creates burnout, resentment, and a feeling that life is always demanding more than you can give. Balance begins when you understand that rest is not a reward for finishing work. It is a requirement for doing work well. Your mind and body are not machines. They need recovery to function at their best. When rest is treated as optional, productivity eventually breaks down. When rest is treated as essential, productivity becomes sustainable. This shift alone changes how you experience time. You stop racing against the clock and start working with your natural rhythms. Balance is not about doing less. It's about doing what matters without destroying yourself in the process. When you respect your limits, your focus sharpens, your creativity increases, and your emotional resilience grows. You become more present in your work and more available in your personal life. This chapter is about learning to design a life where productivity and peace can exist together instead of competing for your attention. Another reason balance feels so difficult is because modern culture glorifies constant busyness. Being tired is worn like a badge of honor, and resting feels like falling behind. Many people tie their self-worth to how much they work, how fast they move, and how much they accomplish. When work becomes identity, stepping away feels uncomfortable. You may feel guilty when you rest, anxious when you slow down, and restless when you're not producing something. This mindset makes balance impossible because it treats life as a race instead of a rhythm. True balance comes from understanding that different seasons require different levels of effort. There are times to push and times to pause, times to focus deeply on work, and times to prioritize relationships, health, or recovery. When you ignore this natural flow, imbalance becomes inevitable. Balancing work and personal life also requires boundaries, and boundaries require courage. You must decide when work ends and personal time begins, even if the work is not finished. Work will always expand if you let it. There will always be more tasks, more messages, and more expectations. Balance is created when you choose to stop, not when everything is complete. This is not irresponsibility, it is wisdom. When you protect personal time, you protect your long-term capacity to work well. Over time, this creates a life that feels full instead of overwhelming, productive instead of exhausting, and meaningful instead of rushed. Rest itself must also be redefined. Many people confuse rest with distraction. Endless scrolling, constant entertainment, and mental stimulation may feel relaxing, but they rarely restore energy. True rest calms the nervous system. It allows your mind to slow down and your body to recover. This might look like quiet walks, deep breathing, reading, spending time with people you feel safe around, or simply doing nothing without guilt. When rest is intentional, it replenishes you. When rest is accidental, it often leaves you feeling just as tired as before. Balancing time also means balancing energy. You can manage hours perfectly and still feel exhausted if your energy is ignored. Pay attention to when you feel most focused, most creative, and most drained. Align demanding tasks with high-energy moments and lighter tasks with low-energy ones. This simple awareness reduces struggle and increases efficiency. Balance is not static. It changes with life circumstances, responsibilities, and goals. The purpose is not to create a perfect schedule, but to build a flexible structure that supports your well-being while allowing growth. When work, rest, and personal life support each other instead of competing, time stops feeling like a burden. It becomes a container for a life that feels intentional, healthy, and deeply satisfying. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to regain control after setbacks and missed days, so balance and progress can continue even when life doesn't go as planned. Chapter 8. Reclaiming control after failure and starting again. No matter how carefully you plan your time, no matter how disciplined you become, there will be days when everything falls apart. Days when your schedule breaks, your habits slip, your focus disappears, and the version of yourself you were trying to build feels far away. This is not a flaw in your system. This is life. The biggest mistake people make in time management is believing that consistency means never failing. Real consistency is not about perfection. It is about recovery. Most people don't lose control of their time because they fail once. They lose control because they turn one bad day into a bad week, one bad week into a bad month, and eventually into a story about who they are. They tell themselves they're always behind, always inconsistent, always starting over. This identity becomes heavier than the failure itself. The truth is, failure with time is inevitable. You will miss days. You will procrastinate. You will fall back into old habits. What determines your future is not whether this happens, but how quickly and calmly you return. Reclaiming control begins when you stop treating failure as proof of weakness and start seeing it as feedback. Feedback tells you where your system broke, not that you are broken. When you learn this, guilt loses its power and progress becomes resilient instead of fragile. One of the most damaging reactions to failure is all or nothing thinking. You miss one planned task and suddenly the day feels ruined. You break one habit and decide the whole routine is pointless. This mindset turns small setbacks into full collapses. It creates emotional weight around time, where every mistake feels personal and discouraging. But time does not punish you for mistakes. It simply continues moving forward, offering you the next moment whether you use it or not. Reclaiming control means learning to restart without drama. It means returning to your plan without self-attack, without overcorrection, without trying to compensate by doing too much. Many people respond to failure by trying to fix everything at once, which only leads to exhaustion and another collapse. Calm recovery is far more powerful. You return to the next small action that matters. You don't rush to make up for lost time, because rushing creates more mistakes. You slow down just enough to regain clarity. This approach builds trust in yourself. You begin to believe that even when you fall off track, you know how to come back. That belief is what creates long-term consistency, not flawless execution, but dependable recovery. Another critical shift in this chapter is releasing guilt as a motivator. Guilt feels productive because it creates urgency, but it actually weakens your relationship with time. When you associate productivity with shame, every task feels heavy. You delay not because you don't care, but because starting reminds you of how far behind you feel. This creates avoidance, which creates more guilt, which creates more delay. It's a cycle many people live in for years without realizing it. Reclaiming control means replacing guilt with responsibility. Responsibility is calm. It doesn't shout. It doesn't punish. It simply says, "This is where I am, and this is the next right step." Responsibility allows you to acknowledge failure without attaching your worth to it. You stop saying, "I'm bad at managing time," and start saying, "My system didn't support me today." That one sentence changes everything. It shifts the problem from identity to structure. When the problem is structural, it can be adjusted. When the problem is personal, it feels permanent. Learning to separate who you are from how your day went is one of the most powerful skills in time management. It allows you to keep moving forward without emotional weight slowing you down. Life will also test your plans in ways you cannot predict. Illness, emotional stress, family responsibilities, unexpected opportunities, and loss all disrupt routines. When your system only works in perfect conditions, it will fail when life becomes real. Reclaiming control means designing flexibility into your approach to time. This does not mean lowering your standards. It means adapting them. Some days, your best will look different than others. On difficult days, consistency may mean doing one small thing instead of everything. It may mean maintaining direction instead of momentum. Progress does not disappear because pace slows. It disappears only when direction is abandoned. This chapter teaches you to protect direction even when speed changes. You learn to scale down without quitting, to simplify without giving up, and to pause without drifting. When you allow yourself to adjust instead of collapse, time becomes an ally again. You stop fighting against reality and start working with it. This is how sustainable productivity is built, not through pressure, but through adaptability. The final truth of reclaiming control is understanding that time management is not a destination, it is a relationship. Some days the relationship feels strong, other days it feels strained. What matters is how you show up consistently over the long run. You don't need to start over every time something goes wrong. You need to continue. You need to return. You need to trust that progress is not erased by pauses. When you internalize this, your fear of failure decreases, and your willingness to act increases. You no longer delay because you're afraid of messing up. You move forward knowing that if you stumble, you know how to stand again. That confidence changes everything. It allows you to plan without pressure, work without panic, and rest without guilt. Reclaiming control after failure is not about becoming stricter with yourself. It is about becoming wiser. And wisdom with time is what turns effort into a life that feels intentional, grounded, and free. Chapter 9. Designing a time-driven life that actually feels like living. After learning how to understand time, protect focus, build habits, balance energy, and recover from setbacks, there comes a moment where everything must come together into something bigger than productivity. That moment is when you stop managing time just to get more done and start managing time to live better. Many people become efficient but unhappy. They optimize schedules but feel empty. They complete tasks but feel disconnected from themselves. This happens when time management becomes mechanical instead of meaningful. Designing a time-driven life means deciding what your time is ultimately for. Time is not just a container for work, it is the medium through which your life unfolds. Every hour you spend is a vote for the kind of life you are building, whether you're aware of it or not. When your days are filled only with urgency and obligation, life begins to feel like something you're surviving instead of something you're shaping. This chapter is about reclaiming authorship over your time, so your schedule reflects your values, not just your responsibilities. It's about moving from reacting to living intentionally. When time aligns with meaning, productivity stops feeling hollow and starts feeling deeply satisfying. You no longer ask how busy you were, but whether the day mattered to you. This shift changes how you wake up, how you work, and how you rest, because your time finally belongs to you instead of the demands surrounding you. Designing a meaningful, time-driven life begins with clarity, not speed. Many people rush to optimize before they understand what they're optimizing for. They add systems, planners, and routines without asking the most important question: what do I actually want my life to feel like? Time is emotional. How you spend it determines how you feel about your life. If your days are full but joyless, something is misaligned. Meaningful time management requires you to define non-negotiables that go beyond work. These might include health, relationships, creativity, learning, or rest. When these elements are missing, no amount of productivity will feel enough. A time-driven life is not one where every minute is used, but one where every important part of you is acknowledged. This means allowing space for stillness without guilt, connection without multitasking, and progress without pressure. It also means letting go of unrealistic expectations about how much you can do. Designing your time around your humanity instead of fighting it creates a rhythm that feels sustainable. You stop forcing yourself into schedules that ignore your limits and start creating ones that support your strengths. This is where peace enters productivity, not because life becomes easy, but because it becomes honest. Another essential part of designing your time is learning to say no without resentment. Every yes is a trade. When you say yes to something that doesn't align with your values, you're saying no to something that might matter more. Many people feel constantly behind because their time is shaped by external demands rather than internal priorities. They give away their hours to please others, meet expectations, or avoid discomfort. Over time, this creates quiet frustration and exhaustion. A time-driven life requires boundaries, not as walls, but as filters. Boundaries help you decide what deserves your energy and what doesn't. This doesn't mean becoming selfish or unavailable. It means becoming intentional. When you protect your time, you protect your future. You begin to choose commitments that align with your direction instead of scattering your energy across obligations that lead nowhere. This clarity simplifies decisions. You no longer feel torn because you know what you're building toward. When your time reflects your priorities, you stop feeling guilty for resting and stop feeling anxious about working. Everything begins to make sense in context. Your days may still be full, but they no longer feel empty. A truly time-driven life also respects seasons. There will be periods of intense work, periods of rest, periods of growth, and periods of maintenance. Trying to keep everything at peak intensity all the time leads to burnout and disappointment. Meaningful time management accepts that life changes, and your schedule must change with it. Some seasons require discipline, others require compassion. Some seasons demand structure, others demand flexibility. Designing your time means revisiting and adjusting your approach regularly instead of clinging to outdated systems. This adaptability prevents stagnation and frustration. You stop judging yourself for not being who you were in a different season and start honoring who you are now. This creates emotional stability and reduces the internal pressure that often sabotages productivity. When you align your time with your current reality, progress becomes natural again. You move forward without resistance because your expectations are realistic and your systems are supportive. Time stops feeling like an enemy and starts feeling like a partner in your growth. The ultimate goal of time management is not control, it is alignment. Alignment between what you do and who you want to become. When your actions match your values, time feels expansive instead of restrictive. Even busy days feel meaningful because they serve a purpose you believe in. This is the difference between living on autopilot and living deliberately. A time-driven life is not perfect or effortless, but it is conscious. You choose how you spend your attention. You decide what deserves your best energy. You allow yourself to rest without shame and work without burnout. Over time, this creates a sense of inner order that no planner can provide. You trust yourself with your time, and that trust brings calm. When you look back, you don't just see completed tasks, you see a life shaped intentionally, one day at a time. And that is the true reward of mastering time. Not more hours, but more life inside the hours you already have. Final chapter, living with time, not against it. At the end of every conversation about time, there is one truth that quietly remains when all techniques, schedules, and strategies fall away. Time was never your enemy. It was never trying to outrun you, pressure you, or leave you behind. The struggle you felt was never really about hours and minutes. It was about the relationship you had with them. For most of your life, time felt like something chasing you, something you had to catch up to, something you were always short on. You learned to rush, to multitask, to apologize for being late, to feel guilty for resting, and anxious for not doing enough. Over time, this created a constant background tension, as if life itself was a deadline. But living with time instead of against it begins when you realize that time is neutral. It does not judge your pace. It does not punish your pauses. It simply holds space for whatever you choose to place inside it. When you stop fighting time and start partnering with it, everything softens. You begin to move with intention instead of urgency. You stop measuring your worth by productivity alone. You start listening to your energy, your needs, and your values. This is where peace replaces pressure. This is where time becomes a companion, not a threat. And once that shift happens, life no longer feels like something you're trying to survive. It becomes something you're consciously living, moment by moment, with awareness and purpose. Living with time also means accepting that you are human, not a machine. Some days you will be focused and efficient. Other days you will be slow, distracted, or emotionally heavy. Both kinds of days are part of a real life. When you expect yourself to perform at the same level every day, frustration is inevitable. But when you allow your pace to change without self-judgment, you preserve your long-term strength. Time management is not about forcing yourself to be disciplined at all costs. It is about learning when to push and when to pause. It is about recognizing that rest is not falling behind and slowing down is not failing. When you stop labeling every unproductive moment as wasted time, you reclaim your mental freedom. You realize that reflection, recovery, and stillness are not empty spaces. They are essential parts of a balanced life. A life lived in harmony with time is one where progress and rest coexist without guilt, where effort does not come at the cost of health, where ambition does not silence joy. This balance is not accidental. It is chosen daily through small decisions that honor both your goals and your limits. And over time, those decisions shape a life that feels steady, grounded, and deeply human. Another powerful shift happens when you stop trying to control every moment and start trusting your direction instead. Many people feel anxious because they believe every day must be perfectly productive to be meaningful. But meaning is not created through perfection. It is created through consistency of intention. When you know where you are heading, missing a day does not derail you.